are going to be talking about the hilarious sci-fi comedy movie, The Last Jedi. Now, I'm not going to really be talking about the plot at all, but I am going to mention a couple of scenes here and there to illustrate a couple of points. Now, I have avoided all reviews before seeing this movie, but I have heard people saying it's the best one since Empire Strikes Back, and I've heard people saying it's worse than The Phantom Menace. Now, I tended to believe the people who said it was worse than The Phantom Menace. They're people who I actually know, people who were saying it was the best one since The Empire Strikes Back were critics that were invited to the premiere and stuff like that, so, you know. Anyway, what do I think of it? I've got to say, this is a bitterly disappointing movie, not without its fun bits though, and a couple of neat character turns. What works for me? I think the scenes with Luke Skywalker all worked pretty well. I thought his character was well handled, in my opinion, and I think he actually has quite a good kind of arc in this film and is quite respectful to the character. I also liked Kylo Ren in this movie as well, more so than the first film, I've got to say, actually. In fact, like I said, he's one of the few characters who I kind of did like more than The Force Awakens. And I was never really bored in this film. One of my main critiques with the prequels is that I found them boring. I was bored in those movies, and I wasn't bored in this film. I was engaged. I do think it kind of went a little long, if I'm honest. But let's talk about what doesn't work. This film is going to be divisive, so this is only my own really opinions. And Star Wars is an odd one because I feel you have to talk about it from a personal experience. Seeing the original Star Wars film is literally my earliest memory that I saw at the cinema. And I saw it when I was very young, and it's literally my earliest memory. This is definitely a movie that is turning Star Wars from one thing into another. It's passing over to the millennial generation. This is definitely a goodbye to the kind of the series that we've known. If you're kind of my age, you know, moving it on to, you know, new folks basically. But there was some. I've got to go into some specifics. Not really going to go into spoilers, but Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey, I thought she's not a very good actress, unfortunately. Especially in the first half of this movie. Some of her line deliveries that are on this island, you would have seen at the end of The Force Awakens, are simply horrible. Horrible line deliveries. In this high-profile movie, I can't believe we've got quite poor acting. She does improve in other scenes, especially in the latter half, but to be honest with you, she's in the background more in that kind of the latter half of it. But there's some real bad line deliveries from her, but she's not the only one. There is some cringe-worthingly, mustache-twirlingly bad turns from some of these kind of Imperials or New Order, including General Hux, but a lot of these kind of like Imperial-type officers, they look like they're on a pantomime. Really bad, really super cheesy performances, quite frankly. Minor characters, yes, but horrible, horrible performances. This movie is by far and away the most comedic, and the first joke that is between Hux and Poe is so juvenile, I've got to say. It just seems like it's from a parody movie. It really does. Some of the jokes work, but you know, it kind of, I mean, it gets less jokey as the film goes on. But there are some clunkers here. Let's be honest. It really overdoes the schmaltz. The last scene in this film, oh god, it is cringe-worthy. But there's also some really just dumb things that happen. One scene I'll talk about, it's not really a spoiler because I'm going to be vague. There's a scene involving Finn. You're going to see it on the kind of the trailers where he's facing off against what's her name, Captain Phasma, and there's a scene where he's kind of captured, and there's a big explosion, and all of the First Order people around him are dead, but he's okay for some reason, and in like 10 seconds before that, Captain Phasma was about 2 feet away from him, but then this big explosion happens, and then she's suddenly 30 feet away from him, walking towards Finn in her kind of crew behind her in a cool looking fashion. Ridiculous. And there's also other instances where things, you know, people don't open fire and things like that. And the Podorian guards, whatever they're called, ridiculous. They're about 30 feet away from any type of threat. But when something happens, they kind of like strike in action pose, but they're like, you know, 30, 40 feet away from anyone who's kind of near to them. Stupid. I mean, this film has so many ridiculous moments in it. Like I said, I wasn't bored in this film. It does keep you going, but I have to say I felt this movie was somewhat inconsequential in its plot. It almost feels like this is a kind of live action version of the TV show Rebels. It really does. I didn't really feel there was any kind of big things that were happening, to be honest with you. But even so, it still does recycle things from previous films. We've got the, you know, I mean, they should just change their uniforms. I mean, they've got the infiltrating the you know, an Empire base or New Order base, which seems to happen in every film and every TV show. We've got the, you know, the kind of the Empire Strikes Back versus attack type things. Very much kind of recycling. I mean, it does do it. It's a kind of a different plot, so you can't say it's a rehash like maybe Force Awakens was. So I'll give it that. But I've got to be honest with you that until we got to the last act of this film, I was thinking this is a bad film. It's a bad film. I kind of like the last act. I liked what they did with a couple of characters in that last act, and it was quite fun, I've got to say. So I won't say it's a complete train wreck, but it's really kind of weak and kind of mundane, if we're honest. It doesn't kind of hold up, I don't think. It's not a film I'll be rushing out to see again, if completely honest. But I never really saw Force Awakens again. I kind of enjoyed Force Awakens, but that kind of like, meh. After a while, I thought, I have no real desire to see that again. But I'll watch the original Star Wars films, you know, quite happily on repeat. So this movie feels like it's an end. I know there's another one coming out, but it kind of does feel like it's an end. And I feel what comes next is going to be a whole new series of films, almost a whole new outlook to the Star Wars series and franchise. One another annoying thing, they kind of tease you with a couple of fates of characters and then don't really pull the trigger. And they do it a couple of times, and I feel it's maybe done a little bit too much, and you maybe felt they maybe should have pulled the trigger on a couple of things. Yeah, disappointing. Really disappointed with this movie. I don't think it's a terrible film. I'll give it a 5 out of 10, but I'm not all that fussed with it. I feel like I'm being generous giving it 5 out of 10. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, I feel this film is going to be massively diverse in regards to how people feel about it. But yeah, I didn't really like it. Anyway, 5 out of 10. What did you think? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.